What is a French girl for you, Alice?
La French girl, c'est une nana qui peut être super classe et d'un seul coup elle va te sortir un gros mot comme ça.
And in English, please.
I would say that it's a mix of being spontaneous and mischievous. I know it sounds super cliché, but it's more or less what it is. Ah ouais, alors celui-là, breton, manifeste de surréalisme. Il est génial celui-là, génial. I think that despite that French girl stereotype, we are very much different. On n'est pas toutes là avec notre frange et notre marinière.
Alice, t'as littéralement une frange et une marinière.
Yes, but it's different. C'est très différent. Je vais vous montrer mes poèmes. Bonjour à tous, my name's Alice and welcome back to my channel. So yes, I'm finally tackling the French girl aesthetic. In case you didn't know, I'm French and I really like the French girl aesthetic. For those of you who struggle to conceptualize what the French girl aesthetic is, and actually I realized that most of my French friends actually don't really understand what it is, which already tells a lot about the aesthetic, but we'll go back to that later. So yeah, the French girl aesthetic is mostly based on 60s and 19th fashion, and it's this combination of looking refined, elegant, but also very laid back and casual. She likes high quality timeless pieces, she likes vintage, she knows how to dress for her body type, we'll come back to that later as well. She's confident, sexy, she puts lipstick with her fingers, adjusts her skirt to give her legs some sunshine while en terrasse at a café, wears a dress on a bicycle and jeans for a night out, surrounds herself with beautiful souls and witty friends, and missing the metro stop because that book was just so good.
These things only happen to French girls.
Actually, the French girl has been an object of fascination for a very long time. The first editions of Vogue in the US featured articles that you could totally find in today's magazines, for example, on how French women make and preserve beauty. That fascination grew in the 1920s when the French economy was going down and the American industrial elite was rising. Progressively, Paris understood its potential as a city of choice among American tourists and thus focused on standing out and making itself very different from other European cities. Paris cultivated that difference since then. It emphasized on its vibrant culture, les années folles with Josephine Baker, but also became a place of exile for writers like Fitzgerald or Hemingway. Paris sounded super cool at that time. It was even called the navel of the world. Yet the result of that international fame and all the attention Paris got from newspapers really turned this city into a sort of an ideal, something that became constructed by people who only had a very limited experience of what Paris, and by extension France, was. That constructed ideal extended to its inhabitants and what we now call the French girl. At that time, Coco Chanel style embodied what was considered as the new cool avant-garde Parisian style. In 1926, she published a picture of a short, simple black dress in American Vogue. The little black dress was born. Now we're progressively moving on to the Second World War, and France is very much losing its influence. Now it's the US who is setting international trends, and especially with the growing popularity of its cinema, Hollywood, and all the movie stars that emerged from it, including Marilyn Monroe. Curvier bodies, extravagant outfits, cool makeup and hair became the norm. And it kind of reflected in France with our local Marilyn Monroe, BB, Brigitte Bardot. Brigitte Bardot. Bardot gained a lot of popularity after she appeared as the leading role in the movie Et Dieu créa la femme, and God created women. No comment. In the movie, she appeared as this cute and sensual young woman, bold and feminine. She pretty much embodied what many of us would now consider as the personality of the French girl. A bit naive, but witty and whimsical. Another very important element as well is that Brigitte Bardot descended the French girl aesthetic from Paris and brought it to the south, to Saint-Tropez. And what you see in all those South of France movies are influences that are still used by the French girl today. The long midi dress with the wicker basket and espadrille. As a ballerina, Brigitte Bardot was way slimmer than Marilyn Monroe, but she was still quite curvy thanks to her very tiny waist and her prominent breasts. And of course she went for that blonde look. personal take, but I feel like Brigitte Bardot epitomized this transition from Marilyn Monroe in the 1950s to Audrey Hepburn in the 1960s. Hepburn, a European, symbolized that return to Paris fashion, which meant elegance over American extravagance, meaning longer silhouette, slimmer silhouette, minimal makeup and minimal accessories, and rather simple outfit, so a more casual look overall. So you see that constant interaction between the US and France really is what shaped the French girl aesthetic. I won't say the French girl was entirely constructed by the US because I'm just too patriotic for that, but as with every aesthetic or stereotype, there is a good amount of romanticization. And to be honest, that French girl ideal has always been for us, French women, very exclusive. First, in terms of class. Paris fashion quickly became associated with luxury, and luxury is not accessible for everybody. Therefore, when Brigitte Bardot came along with her t-shirt, jeans, simple skirts and dresses, French women quickly identified to her and idealized her because she made the French women more down to earth, more like the majority of us working class or middle class women. The way she danced, talked back to men, used her sensuality to get what she wanted, was quite inspiring. Yet, the simplicity of her clothing was counterbalanced by a specific lifestyle that was quite unattainable for the majority of people. In fact, paid vacation in France was still rather limited, and not everybody could afford travelling to the south or even have a secondary home there. So when you see Brigitte Bardot dressed up like that, and the replication of her style by modern French girls influencers, well, for most of us French women, this screams privilege. Now when you look at Rouge, for example, Rouge has become the French girl aesthetic brand par excellence. You'll first notice that prices are super high, and second, that the style is mostly based on vintage pieces. And it's not really about going to a thrift shop and just digging into the boxes of clothes. No. It's not that type of vintage. It's more a generational inheritance type of vintage, you see? More like, I got this lovely dress from my mom, or I got this leather bag from my aunt, or I got this jewelry set from my grandmother. For me, that's the essence of Rouge and its owner, Jeanne Damas. A style that is timeless because it looks like it's been passed from generation to generation. So now you're gonna ask, what about this? And what about that? This is how I see a French girl. Well, glad you asked. I'm now moving to the second reason why I think the French girl aesthetic is very exclusive. Thinness. As we mentioned before, Paris popularized the long, slim silhouette, and there are tons of books and articles on why French women are so slim and how they maintain such a silhouette, which tells a lot about how this aspect in particular is a big part of the French girl aesthetic. To go back to that picture, the white t-shirt, a white blouse and a pair of jeans, well, you'll have to admit that it wouldn't be perceived as trendy if the girl was a plus-size model, or if she didn't look as effortlessly pretty. Some call that thin privilege or pretty privilege. I'm not a huge fan of these terms, but you cannot deny the fact that there is nothing particularly French about wearing a white t-shirt and a pair of jeans. But apparently there is something French in being thin and effortlessly pretty. Actually, I did a YouTube poll about a week ago, and most of you said that the French girl was effortlessly pretty or refined. And it's true, there are plenty of tutorials and videos on how to get that look. Pretty much the same thing as what we saw in those American Vogue magazines in early 20th century. Which brings me to my last point. The French girl aesthetic is a nostalgic aesthetic, which means that it romanticizes a specific era and lifestyle that did exist at some point in history for a specific group of people, but that now influencers try to capitalize on. Most of the exclusiveness of the French girl aesthetic actually comes from the fact that it is nostalgic. The French girl is now facing a big dilemma because most of the icons she gets her inspiration from are very, very problematic. Coco Chanel was profoundly anti-Semite, and Brigitte Bardot, she's super racist, and she was also part of the big backlash against the French Me Too. She was part of all those women, including Catherine Deneuve, who signed and wrote a declaration called the right to bother, basically, le droit d'importuner. And so in that declaration, they said that it's fine for a man to grab your butt in the street, to hiss at a woman, to call her all sorts of names in public, to keep on making sexist jokes in front of her. Come on, it's just human nature. Just to make it clear, it's not because you want to dress the French way that it automatically tags you with all those problematic aspects of the French girl aesthetic. Not at all. It's my third video on nostalgic aesthetics, and it always comes down to the same thing. Nostalgic style, oui. Nostalgic values. So when I put the outdated option in the poll, I'm mostly talking about those French icons, and it really frustrates me that when you think about the French girl, you think about those people. We, French women, are so much more than that. We're the homeland of feminist and socialist writer Georges Sand, but also Marion Cotillard, who's very much involved into environmentalism. But nothing compares to Adèle Haenel, a true role model who endangered her career as an actress by revealing that she was sexually harassed and probably sexually assaulted by a director when she was just 15 years old. She literally left the Caesar Ceremony Awards after Roman Polanski won the Best Director Honor Award. Just saying a big to that weird industry. She's just brilliant in everything she does, and I highly recommend you check her out if you don't know her already. Who are you? I'll put her socials in the description box. C'est fini pour aujourd'hui. I hope you liked the video. Feel free to comment any ideas, suggestions, advice. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but also share this video with a friend. It really helps me grow this little channel. And yeah, merci et à la semaine prochaine. Bye!